Hi, I'm Patrick Cobb with AARP South Carolina. AARP South Carolina is pleased to sponsor the Post and Courier's Pints and Politics series. AARP is a nonpartisan organization. We don't endorse candidates nor parties. We work on issues important for families 50 plus in South Carolina. Follow us at aarp.org/SC.
Today we'll be honoring the 4th Congressional District. We'll hear from Catherine Harvey, and we'll conclude with William Timmons. I want to thank you, our subscribers that are here. You're very important to us for supporting local journalism. And also our newspaper ambassadors. We have some ladies here from Travelers Rest. They deliver our papers every month in their community. So you are extremely important to us, and as we grow, we like that you're growing with us. So again, we wanted to thank the Thomas Creek Brewery for hosting this for us, and of course AARP. This is our 5th year with AARP, and our almost 50th event that we have done with them in politics. So I want to bring up and welcome Patrick Cobb, who is the Associate State Director of AARP South Carolina.
How's everybody doing? It feels like summertime to me. I have a Jeep, so I've had the top down all day, so I feel like I'm like summertime, and it's great. But it's great to see everybody here at Pints and Politics. I want to thank the Post and Courier and our candidates for being here this evening. I know we were supposed to have been here a couple of weeks ago, but you had a little weather incident up here. Hope everybody's doing well and things like that. I was out of power for 70 hours, and my neighborhood thought they were going to go berserk, and I said, move to Greenville, move to Asheville, and see what happens there. So they hushed on the Facebook page. I just want to share a couple little things. AARP is with you while you're here. While you came in, if you get our bulletin, remember, you saw this in your bulletin, the how-to, what-tos, and where-tos on how to vote. How many of you already early voted in the past 3 days? Oh, we're getting there. We did a call Monday, and they said 71% of those folks are going to early vote. So if you can, take advantage of it. It is such a breeze. The curbside lines, I understand, are a little long for folks curbsiding, but it's what you want to do. So it's got all the things to do it. And then also on your tables, there's this cool looking little keychain, key fob like this, and there's a QR code on the back. Well, guess where it takes you? It takes you to this webpage. So if you need something while you're standing in line ready to vote, it'll tell you how to do things that you need to do. We don't endorse candidates, but we do have a side-by-side on both the presidential candidates in the bulletin that you can see. And then next Tuesday night, I am doing a really cool thing. I've never done this before. I'm hosting a book chat with Valerie Burline, who is the author of The Devil at His Elbow, one of the very first books to come out on the Murdaugh trial that happened last year. And yesterday, Valerie and I laughed so hard about conversation. We've known each other for a while. But if you'd like to join us for that conversation, the QR code, we're into QR codes these days. So you can just register and you'll get a Zoom link about the event next Tuesday night. So we're looking forward to that chat. So I'm going to throw it back to, I guess, over this way. I think it's where I need to go. Thanks, y'all, for being here.
Thank you so much. We so appreciate the partnership, and we look forward to many more years with you. Next, I want to bring up Eric Hunter. He is our upstate editor, and he's going to introduce our candidates, and we'll get started.
Yes, this is a really cool venue to be in. This is Greenville's first brewery, opened in 1998, so I don't know if anybody knew that, but they're the first. So I'm told, first of all, we have to go over the rules. And I think these are going to be followed, but you got a handout on these. I'll introduce our candidate. First candidate is Democratic challenger and Spartanburg native Catherine Harvey. She's a proud graduate of Spartanburg High School and New York University. The daughter of special education teachers in Spartanburg County Schools, she worked for a decade at the highest levels of the nonprofit sector, including helping lead the international nonprofit behind Sesame Street. Upon her return to Spartanburg in 2017, she founded her own business that supports nonprofits across South Carolina.
Everyone, hi. My name is Macon. I'm a politics reporter here at the Post and Courier, and I'm co-hosting with David.
Hi everybody, my name is David Ferrara. I'm the Greenville reporter here. Right now I'm doing quick response, and soon I will be your politics and accountability reporter. So happy to be here.
We have a list of questions that we put together. One sponsor question, a couple of reader submitted questions as well. And then we're going to do a speed round at the end. We have time for that.
Cannot wait.
Our first question, we ask all of our candidates this. It's our traditional first question. Since we're in a brew pub, do you drink alcohol? If so, do you have a favorite beer?
The answer is yes. And when I moved back, I work with small businesses in addition to nonprofits. So I helped run RJ Rocker's Brewery. I did all their marketing, and they're actually the oldest, or second oldest brewery in the state of South Carolina. So I learned a lot about IPAs and other things that I didn't think I would be an expert in. I think these days, especially during this race, just like a solid glass of Pinot Noir is where I have to start and stop at the end of the night. But I grew an appreciation for all of this, for sure, since I've been back home.
Yeah, so talking about something that is, I think, on still a lot of people's minds here in the upstate is Tropical Storm Helene. So we're a month out, coming on in a couple days. The upstate was hit hard by the storm and is still feeling its impact. FEMA has become a hot topic in many circles, particularly on social media. Could you tell me a little bit about what you thought about FEMA's response to the storm?
Sure. I mean, I do want to start by just being transparent about what took place the night before the storm with regards to FEMA. Our current congressman was in Washington, D.C. At that time, and he was voting against a bipartisan effort to avert a government shutdown that included defunding FEMA to the tune of $20 billion. So we were about to get hit by the storm of the century, and that's where the energy was going. And I just think about how FEMA has supported folks here in the upstate. Today they actually opened one of their centers in Spartanburg. I believe they have one open in Greenville as well, and I met with FEMA folks at a shelter in downtown Spartanburg a couple of days after the storm, once they were able to get in, and they were just really trying to help guide folks, right? And we know that a lot of people are applying for assistance, and it's happening, it's supporting them. So I think we've had an adequate response to FEMA, certainly as they are balancing supporting Western North Carolina and us here in the upstate. But I do think it just qualifies the magnitude of, like, we cannot play party politics with people's lives. This is very serious, and we have to be very real about the fact that this extreme weather caused by climate change is only become more frequent and only going to become more extreme, right? I mean, a hurricane just hit the upstate in Western North Carolina. I think we can all agree that it's here and it's impacting everyone. And I think it's very important that we, especially your congressperson, are thinking about the future of this community, thinking about how we bring investment in to make our communities resilient, not block needed resources from coming in to the area.
Yeah, and part of that impact, I mean, a lot of people have been talking about advocating and getting funding for burying power lines. Do you have any thoughts on that if you were in Congress?
So it was a big conversation in my neighborhood. Some folks wanted to do it, some folks didn't want to do it. I do think we've seen that it certainly helps in the circumstances that we just experienced, and there was actually an opportunity to bring in $20 million worth of investment to strengthen our power grid here in South Carolina that our current congressman blocked as well. And I just bring that up because I think it's really important to show a record that's continuing to block resources coming into the community. I think that I'm certainly in favor of burying the lines as I've seen the improvements in my own neighborhood, but again, I think you can divide a room with that question right now because there's a lot of folks that have differing opinions on it.
Yeah, and then just kind of looking, I think one thing that's on a lot of people's minds when it comes to this race, just switching gears a little bit, is sort of the situation with the 4th District, right? No Democrat has won this district since 1990. In fact, no candidate has come within 20 points of victory since Glenn Reese's Democrat 17-point loss to Jim DeMint back in 1998. So kind of shifting gears a little bit, but what do you think about your chances in this race, and what makes you stand out as a candidate, and what makes voters more receptive to Democrat policies now than in the past?
Well, first of all, I think I'm a hell of a contender. I don't think anybody's seen a Democrat who's been able to be this competitive in this congressional race. I don't think Congressman Timmons knew what was coming, candidly, or expected it. And more importantly, we know that this is a competitive district because the numbers are there. It's the act of proving it right now. And just remember, folks, I think you just threw out the 80s and 90s. Like, think about where this district is right now. Think about where it is comparative to 2020, right? We are the fastest growing, youngest trending majority female district in the state of South Carolina. So we have to consider the new makeup of the demographic in combination with the extreme policies taking place on our state and federal levels right now, combined with a competitive candidate that shows up in this community every single day. It's my job, but I do it anyway. And who, candidly, I think I'm resonating with voters. I'm out on the trail every day. We've been working on finding somebody to run for this seat for 2.5 years, before now, and I've been on the trail for 6 months. And what I hear from folks is they're ready for change. Now, are folks going to meet me on every single issue? That's part of the give and take, right? But from my perspective, we haven't had a congressperson that has actually shown up in our community, met our voters where they are, listened, advocated for what they need on a federal level in a really long time. I mean, I've moved home 7 years ago, so effectively Timmons is the only congressperson that I know, and he has a record of doing nothing in this community and not showing up as well, and I think that is inherently problematic. So I think that we are dealing with variables right now, this year, in this district, the confluence of them we couldn't have imagined, we've never seen before, and I think it is a real possibility, and I fully respect, and I know where we live, and I am a realist, but I also believe in the people of the upstate of South Carolina, and I do believe that they want something different.
So do you think that even despite what could be the results in this election, are you trying to build a democratic platform for the future?
I think I'm trying to build a people platform, right? We're just talking about what the people of the upstate need. And we're not just talking about what you need to survive, we're talking about what you need to thrive. We're talking about focusing on the future of an area that's set to double in population in the next 20 years and what that's gonna need. We're talking about making our communities more resilient, making our communities safer, our children safer, our women safer. I think this is much more about a people platform than any party. And for me, that is the core of why I am running. That is what I've built my career on, working for children and families, to advocate for them here at home and abroad. It's what I've done every day since I moved back 70 years ago, and I also just want to qualify that yes, I do live in District 4, and I'm from Spartanburg, and I live in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and I've lived here for a combined 24 years. Let's get that out of the way. But I do believe that we have lost sight of the people of our district a bit and our partisan politics, and it's really just time to get back to basics. And that's exactly what I aim to do when I get to Congress.
The next question is from our sponsor, AARP. What are your ideas to make Social Security solvent? Be specific. What would you do?
So, we know that our congressperson has endorsed $1.5 trillion in cuts to Social Security and increasing the retirement age, and that feels very extreme, especially without a plan of care on the other side, right? I think it would impact almost 80% of constituents here in the upstate in some way, shape, or form. I certainly think about my retired educator parents and what they paid into for decades to be able to live their life with dignity at this juncture, and what it would look like for our generation. And I think there is a much more reasonable approach to this, like increasing the Social Security tax cap. I think it's about $175,000 right now. It was increased about $8,000 in the last year. A moderate increase could really go a long way to making this program more solvent without such an extreme measure.
So our next question is a reader question from a Post and Courier reader. Do you support term limits for Congress? Why or why not?
100% yes. Listen, I think we've seen this state and other states around the country, when you have one person that stays in a position of power for that long, especially in some of our red states that technically are and truthfully are just so gerrymandered, it can do more harm than good. I think term limits are really important. I would absolutely honor and advocate for them.
Our next question is about housing. To address the housing crisis, Kamala Harris has suggested the federal government provide as much as $25,000 in assistance to first-time buyers, plus other tax breaks for home builders that focus on first-time homes and apartments. Do you agree with that and think it could be helpful? Why or why not?
I do agree with it. So as part of my professional work, I run a firm that's supported over 100 nonprofits here in the upstate and across the state of South Carolina, currently working with a client who has been bringing opportunities for attainable housing to Spartanburg. It's actually becoming a model around the nation right now, revitalization of the community, and then providing opportunities for attainable housing, really that helps get it to the core of what our working families need, right? When we're thinking about how many young families are moving here, our quality of life is so attractive, right? Here in the upstate, that's why people are moving here, for jobs and quality of life. But we have to have that infrastructure for them, and quite frankly, families, especially working families, need a lift right now. And in working with my client for over the year, I've really seen how these opportunities are changing the dynamics of a generation. When you can provide a home without it being a burden, right, that you carry for your children, for their future, it makes generational impact. So I do think that has merit and really beginning to lift families up, certainly here in the upstate.
Do you want Ukraine to win the war with Russia? And do you see the continued supply of American arms as a positive until that happens, or if that happens?
I do support Ukraine, and I support America's efforts to protect democracy around the world. It's interesting, we have an ever-growing Ukrainian population here in the upstate. It is sizable in the county of Spartanburg, and we are hearing more and more of those voices, which has been pretty powerful during this conflict. I mean, many of them are refugees from the conflict directly in Spartanburg County. So I take that into consideration too. I just kind of have to humanize this as well, right? I think about too, as a fraction of the security budget, no American blood is shed in supporting Ukraine. And I do think that it is our duty as the United States of America to protect democracy. Ukraine has the right to defend itself, especially against a superpower like Russia. And y'all consider if Russia was able to run roughshod over Europe. I mean, it would impact national security, it would impact democracy around the world, and I do believe the investment into protect Ukraine and our allies like them is critical, candidly, to protect us as well.
So continuing on the topic of foreign affairs, just going to ask you about the war in Israel. The Biden administration's support for Israel and its wars in Gaza and Lebanon has been lightly critical but continual. Are you satisfied with the path that the administration has taken?
I 100% support Israel and their right to defend themselves. As a fellow of Israel who has studied and worshiped and broken bread and been to their incredible and beautiful and complex nation. They are our allies in the Middle East, and it is our job as the United States of America to protect our allies, and they have the right to protect themselves. I will say this though, we have to ensure October 7th never happens again. We have to call for hostages to be released, and the leader of Hamas has been removed. There is a moment to truly call for peace right now, and 40,000 Palestinian people have perished in this conflict, most of them women and children. And as somebody who has fought for women and children and families every step of her career, here at home and abroad, it is breathtaking what we have watched unfolded. And the Palestinian people have a right to carve out their path forward outside of the extreme leadership of Hamas. This is a failure of leadership where people are the casualty of the conflict. Y'all, and I just have to say it again, the number of people who have perished in Palestine is the size of the city of Spartanburg. The magnitude of the humanitarian crisis is so great. We must call for peace, and that includes Israel's right to defend itself, making sure October 7th never happens again, and making sure the Palestinian people can carve out their future.
But the question of, are you satisfied with the way the Biden administration, potentially a future Kamala Harris administration, would proceed? Are you satisfied with the steps that they have taken?
In continuing to supply the needs of Israel, I think it was critical to do that. I do. I mean, it's hard from a personal standpoint, of course, because of the sheer humanitarian crisis in Palestine, but we have to protect Israel as our ally in the Middle East, and I do think the Biden administrations continue to do that every step of the way.
Kamala Harris has proposed increasing the corporate tax rate to 28%, and that would partially reverse former President Trump's 2017 tax law, which cut those rates from 21% to 21% from 35%. Budget experts estimate that would raise about $1 trillion for the federal government over a decade. Wall Street says that would cut into company profits. Any broad corporate tax changes would need to come from Congress. Do you support Harris's proposal, and what changes, if any, do you think Congress should make?
You know, I think that corporations do have to be held accountable. I do think that the corporate tax changes from the Harris administration are more in line with where I fall. I think also, handedly, we were left a mess by the Trump administration, and we're still working through that. But I do agree with the Harris administration's corporate tax.
Now, in Congress and in politics in general, there are very many polarizing issues. But looking specifically at gun laws, if you had the power and the Democratic majority in Congress and the Senate, what changes would you like to see enacted in America's gun laws?
A very important question. Let me just start by saying I believe in the Second Amendment, okay? And I believe in the right to bear arms. I grew up in this area. I'm a daughter of the South. I'm born and raised in Spartanburg. I fully believe in protecting the Second Amendment. And I also believe that our community and our schools deserve to be safe, okay? I think this is a very timely and important conversation right now, especially with the open carry law that's enforced in South Carolina. I don't think we are doing enough. I think the majority of Americans and the majority of folks here in District 4 want common sense gun legislation in Congress. We want background checks, we want red flag laws, and our congressperson has voted against both of them. There's so much on the table that could immediately be making our communities safer, like getting these weapons of war off the street that are being used in school massacres. And at every turn, extreme Republicans like William Timmons are blocking the pathway for this legislation. If we are really going to talk about how we improve our communities and how we care about our people, we can advocate for common sense gun laws and also protect the Second Amendment. Two truths can be true. And I think the folks of the upstate want a common sense congresswoman and like in Congress advocating for this right now. I truly do.
So to be clear, you would support red flag and background checks?
Absolutely.
And just looking at this polarizing issue, compromise is likely necessary. So how do you think you'll be able to reach across the aisle to get any form of action done, especially as you see headlines pop up in the news about mass shootings or other issues with guns?
You know, part of this is also making sure that we are investing in mental health resources in schools. There's levels of this along the way. There's been a lot of discussion in our state about gun safety in homes. We actually hear a lot of physicians preach that in their offices right now. How are you locking up your guns? How close are they to your children, right? I think there are methods and levels of this conversation and of policies that can be put in place that can start to mitigate the extraordinary, y'all, guns are the #1 killer of children in the United States of America. That should never have been the case. It's an epidemic. And I believe in compromise. I mean, that's part of why I'm running for Congress. It has become so polarized and so extreme. You're not going to get anything done, especially not in this state, unless you're willing to work across the aisle. And that's on every issue. It's always up for a discussion. We have to be talking to one another about the issues that are impacting our community the most. And this one's at the top for me. So you can actually absolutely count on me to have those discussions when I get to DC.
In the wake of several Republican states stiffening their views on reproductive rights, abortion bans, former President Trump has suggested IVF either be paid for by the federal government or mandated by to make those private insurance companies cover that. Those treatments are very expensive, $10,000, $20,000, up to $30,000, often multiple treatments. Do you agree that that kind of reform should happen?
I gotta be honest, y'all. Having a conversation based off a proposal from a man that self-proclaimed himself the father of IVF is tough for me, right? What I'm concerned about is fighting for reproductive health care for women on a federal level that includes protecting access to IVF and includes protecting access to contraception, because it is all on the line right now. And our congressperson co-sponsored a piece of legislation that threatens the access to IVF. He's made it more challenging for military women, for service women to gain access to critical reproductive health care. He's called for a national abortion ban. And candidly, he's in lockstep with the gentleman you're talking about. Southern women are dying. They are dying right now. And we have a 6-week abortion ban in place in this state, and our state is not protecting women, and we have to do it on a federal level. It is absolutely one of the reasons that I'm running right now, and it's absolutely what I'm gonna fight for in Congress, because I believe in protecting our women in South Carolina.
And how do you propose Congress do that? How do you propose Congress do that? Or what would you do specifically?
Codifying Roe would help protect reproductive health care and moving that even further to protect IVF and contraception. I mean, I think we've seen 3 years now, 2.5 now since Roe fell. We have seen the ramifications of states where we took it down to the state level and extreme bans were put in place, and the harm that it's doing to women and children, for that matter, and families. And it also has a significant economic impact. I mean, there's no denying that, right? The ability to grow your family how you see fit is the cornerstone for economic mobility. And taking that away from my perspective and the perspective of many voters that I talk to out on the trail in this district is criminal. And I believe in our medical professionals, their ability to follow the letter of the law, the oath that they took. You know, we've got to believe in women, and we've got to believe in protecting women.
So last night, during a debate on Fox Carolina with Congressman William Timmons, he said that you're new to this when you had spoke about his work in Congress. What's your response?
He said a lot of things last night. It is still online, don't you worry. what is my response? You know, I think there was a lot of unprepared, ill-informed remarks last night from our congressman. Here's from where I sit the merit of a good representative. You show up in your community, you listen and advocate for the needs of the people, you are willing to collaborate, right? Work across the aisle to get things done. You have knowledge of what your community needs.
We'll speed round until our time is up. So we'll just bounce back and forth. This is a big question to start with. Name 2 of the top threats facing the country in the next 5 years you'd like to be a part of solving as a member of Congress. What areas interest you?
Healthcare and women's healthcare for sure. Border security interests me and interests a lot of folks in District 4, folks around the country. Those would be top 2.
If you're elected, who would you like to mold your congressional service after?
You caught me with that one. Who would I like to mold my... Does that have to be from the... Okay, well, here's an easy one. Liz Patterson was pretty damn good, wasn't she? I think she was somebody that could really reach across the aisle. Was pretty beloved in our community. That's a good one to start with.
Barbecue, mustard-based, vinegar-based, tomato-based.
Okay, I'm gonna say mustard-based, and you can throw tomatoes at me if you need to, but that's definitely where I came from.
When you're not running for office or working, what's a day off look like?
When I'm not running or working, what does a day off look like? Honestly, I love being out in our community. We have a pretty vibrant downtown happening in Spartanburg right now with great local music, and we just have wonderful folks in District 4, like truly just going out and enjoying what's being built in Spartanburg is one of my favorite things to do. We also have a beautiful 32 miles of interconnected trail system, and my measure of sanity during this race has been walking 3 miles with my mom every morning, so that's actually been quite a joy. And I've had the privilege of being able to be a part of that being built, so it's actually really special to me to go out and enjoy it in our community.
Last question. Tell us a character trait you have in one word that is a reason why people should vote for you. I am blank.
I am resilient.
He is running for his 4th term in Congress, first elected in 2018. Before that, he was a state senator. Before that, he was a prosecutor. He's been a small business owner, and now we welcome him to the stage. Thank you.
Welcome, Congressman. As you guys already know, my name is David. This is Megan.
Hey, everyone.
And it's our traditional first question for Pints and Politics here. To start off, since we are in a brewery, obviously you have a beer in front of you. What are you sipping on?
So this is the rice lager, and I gotta tell you, it's incredible. If you haven't had it yet, you gotta go try it. It's wonderful.
So are lagers your favorite kind of beer?
So I actually really like the rice lager. I'm gluten sensitive-ish, depending on where I'm drinking, but this is gonna be one.
All right. Well, so kind of just jumping right into it. FEMA is still a number one topic. The tropical storm Helene is still number one topic in a lot of people's minds, and I want to talk to you a little bit about FEMA. It's become a topic that's very prevalent on social media and in discourse right now. At a press conference after President Biden came to Greenville a couple weeks ago, he didn't necessarily address FEMA's response in South Carolina. Former President Trump, though, continues to say that FEMA isn't providing enough aid, enough support for people in Western North Carolina, and continues to spread widely debunked conspiracy theories about FEMA's efforts. Your own colleague in Congress, North Carolina Republican Congressman Chuck Edwards, has pushed back on those claims, particularly that FEMA money is going to the border or foreign aid, which it isn't. So I want to ask you, do you think that FEMA's response after the hurricane has been helpful, and do you think that Trump's rhetoric is helping or hurting recovery efforts?
That's a really long question. First, I want to thank Thomas Creek for hosting incredible small business here in Upstate. We're very proud to have you all here. Second, I actually want to thank the ARP for being a part of this, and most importantly, the Post-Courier. So, really, the advent of the internet, the advent of technology has really destroyed journalism. And I gotta say, I don't have a lot of respect for many journalism outlets, but I have a lot of respect for the Post-Courier. They do their best to be unbiased, and their ownership in the state and their investment in the upstate and different parts of the state means a lot to South Carolina. So I just want to start out by saying thank you to the Post-Courier for doing this, and thank you for your investment in South Carolina. All right, so to your question. One, once in 100+ year storm. I mean, it was devastating. Really, really challenging to the government on how to respond. And FEMA did the absolute best they could. I've met with them multiple times, both in Greenville and Spartanburg. I've been on calls with them throughout the recovery. The governor's office, the South Carolina Emergency Management Division, has been in constant communication with the National Guard, with FEMA, and I would say overall that our response here in the upstate has been great. I mean, to be fair, there was a moment or two where the question was, can we get our power turned back on to our hospitals? Can we get our power turned back on to the substation terminals that deliver gas to the gas stations? And then the gas stations either had power or gas, but very few had both. So, you know, we got a lot to learn from this storm, and there is probably some legislation oncoming to address that. But, you know, generally speaking, I would say that the government did a good job here in the upstate. I mean, I bet we lost millions of trees. My parents' house near Furman, I mean, we lost 150. A couple of them were over 200 years old. I mean, the financial burden that removing 150 down trees, I mean, you know, this is a lot. And it's going to impact everybody. It's going to take time. But I think more importantly, what happened in North Carolina, I mean, it's like the apocalypse. I mean, they don't have major highways, and they're not going to be fixed for years. I mean, the damage done is going to take years, if not decades, to overcome. And I mean, you know, we have power back on everywhere here in the upstate, and there's still some areas without internet. But I mean, look, the second that we got gas and the grocery stores had power, we were going to be okay. It's kind of like the time warp back to 1920 when you don't have, you know, internet and TV. I mean, hey, go read a book, talk to your family. I mean, it's all right. So I think it's really important to realize that we should be very fortunate. We should appreciate that we're very fortunate here in the upstate. And you know, I overall will say that I think the government response to the hurricane was good. It can always be better, but you know, I appreciate the people that dropped everything and tried to get us back on our feet here. And we're doing great, but Western North Carolina is going to take a lot of time to get them back on their feet, but we're here to help them long term.
And just looking back at the second part of that lengthy question, I'll admit it. Do you think that the former president's rhetoric is helping or hurting recovery efforts?
So, I'm not specifically familiar with what you're talking about, but generally speaking, I appreciate that he's criticizing some of the control issues related to private individuals trying to bring in aid and whatnot. I mean, it's always going to be easy to look at an issue and find a way you could have done it better. I think generally speaking, he's been supportive. I think he's been financially supportive. I think I don't see President Trump's interaction with the public as being problematic or wrong. I don't even know what you're talking about, so just be honest. So,
well, the president has made claims that FEMA money is going to the border or towards foreign aid.
Sorry, this is great. It is. It just is. So, I mean, yes, it is very accurate to say that the White House, during this administration, the Biden administration, they sent hundreds of millions of dollars that were earmarked for exactly what we're experiencing right now, Hurricane Helene, to, I mean, they redirected it. They did. It's factual. The White House press secretary is on record saying that. I get you the video. So they did it. They said, we have a humanitarian crisis at the border because of their open border policies. They allowed 15 million people in the last 3.5, 4 years. I mean, yes, they did that. So for him to criticize, for President Trump to criticize the Biden administration for redirecting hundreds of millions of dollars away from money that was earmarked for disasters to illegal immigrants entering this country to request asylum under the most ridiculous policies that this country's ever seen and that they will be held accountable for on November 5th. Yes, that is valid, it's accurate, and anybody that says it's not is just wrong. Sorry, I got it worked up. But it's ridiculous.
One last follow-up question on FEMA. You were one of 82 Republicans that voted to shut down the government while Helene was on its path to the upstate. While the initial response money would not have been affected, other FEMA aspects would have been, potentially other parts of the federal response. Was that a wise move to potentially jeopardize parts of FEMA in the name of differences over government spending and voting?
Sure, so one, that's not accurate. When the government goes into a shutdown, personnel that are deemed required to continue working without pay. I mean, again, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but that's what would have happened. I voted against a continuing resolution that would have continued $4 trillion in spending. $4 trillion in spending. We have run a $2 trillion deficit every year for a decade plus. We have $36 trillion in debt. $36 trillion in debt. Just in the last month, for the first time in the history of our country, World War I, World War II, in the history of our country, we will spend more on our interest payment on the debt than we will on our entire defense budget, which is our largest line item of our entire spending. $880 billion. If you think that I'm not doing my job because I'm trying to protect this country from itself, from continuing to spend money we don't have, do what you want. But I am doing my job because we cannot continue to spend money we don't have. We cannot continue to spend into oblivion. And again, we got an election come up, 13 days. The Democrats in the last 4 years spent $7 trillion. $7 trillion. That caused inflation, which caused interest rates to go up, which caused the dream of home ownership to be out of the reach of millions of Americans, which caused, I would bet, Thomas Creek Brewery to not be able to get a loan that they could have afforded 4 years ago because the interest rate is more than double to expand. I'm guessing, but maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Millions of businesses had that experience. So, yes, I vote against spending because it is out of control, it is unsustainable, and it would kill this country if we don't change course.
Before we move on to some questions about the issues, I do want to ask one more question about the former president. It came up a lot last night and it's come up earlier in this conversation. Who won the 2020 presidential election?
So this is a great question, and it's funny because the answer is, I can't answer that question. And the reason I can't, so I'm going to go ahead and say this. Anybody that's giving me jeers or whatever, I'm a lawyer, I've spent hundreds of hours on this. Hundreds of hours. The unconstitutional election law changes made in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Arizona, and other swing states were intentional and systematic and done by the Democrat Party in collusion with get out the vote operations. I can talk about this for hours, and I can promise you that you can't refute it. One of my favorite talking points is that no court ruled for any of these challenges, which is funny because it's actually not true. It's not true. There was one case that got in the Supreme Court, and none of you know what I'm talking about because you don't understand the issue. The case that got to the Supreme Court was here in South Carolina. It's funny, do you remember 4 years ago when Democrats challenged the recently adopted legislature's COVID-friendly voting protocols? One of the things to ensure confidence in the outcome of the election is that people that use them, no excuse absentee voting, have to get a signature to say that they actually voted. That was the election integrity mechanism that the legislature, which is the only people that are allowed to touch election laws, came up with. So what happened? Federal court, a bunch of Democrats file a lawsuit, and Michelle Childs, who almost got the Supreme Court, says, that's not constitutional, you're putting people's lives at risk because of COVID, blah, blah, blah. So, and then they said, all right, we got this new requirement. And then she says, nah, it's not good. Federal judge. Then many news outlets said, well, that's gone now. They appeal it to the Fourth Circuit. Fourth Circuit says, no, you can't do that. Only the legislature can actually change the election laws, which is the rule. It was overturned by the Fourth Circuit and by Supreme Court unanimously said a federal judge cannot change election laws. Because this is the best part. Because if you allow federal judges and unelected bureaucrats to change election laws, citizens will not trust the outcome of the election. So that happened. And I get it that y'all have these ideas about what happened, but that was ruled unanimously by the Supreme Court. And the case in Arizona, the case in Pennsylvania, the case in all the other swing states that never got heard, didn't get heard not because of merit, but because of mootness. I get it, I'm using a lawyer term, but it means that the case can no longer be addressed because there is no way to address the grievance. They're not going to have another election. So when you ask me, do I regret my vote against certifying the election? Absolutely not. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, the dissenting opinion said that we know for a fact that 40,000 people voted that were not legally, constitutionally allowed to vote. And Trump lost Arizona by 12,000 votes. Again, federal judge acting of his own free will against the Constitution. It's not legal. And I can keep going. The Georgia decision from the Secretary of State Raffensperger to agree with Stacey Abrams for ridiculous drop boxes, that's not legal. None of those votes count. Pennsylvania, I can keep going. So I can't tell you what happened 4 years ago. I can't tell you that the unconstitutional changes changed the outcome of the election. I can't change it, it didn't. And the fact that I can't, somebody that's a lawyer that spent hundreds of hours on this, that understands the issue better than anybody in this room, I don't know. I don't know. And that's a problem.
4 years later, and a court case later, and several conversations later, if Trump contests the results of this election, will you support him or will you support the results?
I'm going to do my job again. My job is to certify the election. The way that I do that is based on all of any election irregularities, any allegations of fraud, any evidence I have that says that the outcome was suspicious. So if you look back on this is the best part. Democrats have contested every election for like 15, 20 years. We get all this grief for voting in certification, but the Democrats have done this every time Republicans won. And it's always because of like one precinct where there was a line longer and it was a black community. Like that happened. 50, 60 Democrats voted against it. So again, I'm going to do my job. If in Pennsylvania I find that somebody alleges that the rules were changed the last week and you vote for Trump and the paper says Harris, like, whatever, I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm going to do my job. I'm going to assess the information that's given to me and I'm going to do my job. It's as simple as that. I mean, I hope that we can trust the outcome of the election. I know that in Georgia, where I got to get less worked up. So in Georgia, the Georgia legislature changed the election laws to make it easy to vote, hard to cheat. And Joe Biden called it Jim Crow 2.0 and said that they were trying to basically deny the right of people to vote. It's the dumbest thing I've heard, and it's race baiting. It's just, it's fear mongering. It's not true. So in Georgia, by midnight, on election day, the governor has mandated we have the election results. Do you know why it's hard to believe that Trump lost Pennsylvania? Because he was up by like 1 million votes when I went to bed, and I woke up and he lost by 2. Like, I get it, absentee ballots. I can make the argument on all sides. But when the different counties, they don't call them counties in Pennsylvania, but when the different jurisdictions in Pennsylvania each changed the rules however they wanted to vote, that's hard to defend. It's not legal, it's not constitutional. So again, I'm going to assess all of the facts. I'm going to do a deep dive, and I'll vote to certify or not certify accordingly.
Got it. Next question is from our sponsor, AARP. What are your ideas to make Social Security solvent? Be specific, what would you do?
I got a bill. They're against it, though. No, so look, it's very simple. Social Security will go into austerity measures. Depending on who you listen to, somewhere between 6 and 8 years. That means that everyone receiving a Social Security check will get a 25% reduction in benefits. That's unacceptable. I think we can all agree, right? So the question is, how do we fix it? Congress has refused to address it for decades. The last time we touched Social Security was 1983, the Greenspan Commission. So what I did is I used the Greenspan Commission format. I used the BRAC Commission, Base Relocation Alignment and Closure Commission that we had after the Cold War to basically figure out which bases we were closing, because that was a political mess. And I used the Modernization Committee that I chaired for 2 years, and I was on for another 2 years. And I used the lessons I learned from that, and I put them all into a new commission. It's called the Fiscal Commission. And it has a broad mission. Social Security will clearly be one of the issues. And the goal is to remove this from Congress, to put it into a commission, to allow 15 individuals to go and to try to come up with something that 9 of them can agree to. And then that goes to Congress for an up or down vote. You can't amend it. It goes to the Senate for an up or down vote. You can't amend it. It goes to the President. It's as simple as that. So that is what I believe should happen. My opponent says that I've proposed cuts. Look, 99% of what she says isn't true, and the other 1% is a misrepresentation. I have never proposed anything for Social Security other than a mechanism through which to fix it. I know the 7 different things that we can do. We can increase the retirement age over time. We can increase the amount of money you can give in without getting a benefit. We can do all of these things. But I'm not proposing an actual solution. I'm proposing a mechanism through which we address it. And that got out of the Budget Committee in a bipartisan vote. It has Republicans and Democrats supporting it. I hope we can get a vote on it in November or December in the lame duck. If not, we will refile it and push forward next Congress. Look, I want to protect and save Social Security. Anybody that tells you that they're not going to change it is lying. I got in trouble for saying that. I mean, the not touching Social Security is touching. Because that means that everybody getting it will get a 25% cut. And we all know that's unacceptable. So we have to be proactive about this. The sooner we address it, the better. The longer we wait, the harder it is to fix.
What do you mean you got in trouble for saying that?
It wasn't y'all. Was it Post and Courier or somebody else? Spartanburg Herald-Journal said that I called Harris and Biden and Trump liars, which I did. I specifically said anyone, not them specifically. So, I mean, look, it's easy. Like, everybody running for president has always said, I'm not going to touch Social Security. But guess what? That's touching. So, I'm doing my job. I'm being a responsible legislator. And I think we can all agree that it would be the apocalypse if everybody getting Social Security got a 25% reduction in their check tomorrow. That's 8 years from now, really 6 or 8, depending on a couple of areas. And it's unacceptable, so I'm working to avoid that. What's our time limit? I'll keep my answers shorter. You're asking me hard questions. You're asking me hard questions that are not like yes or no.
That's the point of Pints and Politics.
We will have a speed round at the end.
Yeah, we got some good ones teed up for the speed round.
Let's talk a little bit about last night's debate on Fox Carolina. You said that you would not support the bipartisan legislation on the border, which several Republicans had spent months working on and you had voted against. Political polarization in general, though, has left Congress deadlocked on several issues. So when it comes to the border, or it comes to gun control, or it comes to issues like this, is something better than nothing?
All right, first, I'm pretty sure everybody in this room has decided on who they're voting for.
Yes.
But for people that are watching this, if you don't know who you're voting for, I encourage you to watch the debate last night. I mean, I have answers to all of the questions succinctly and coherently, and all that my opponent said was that I support things I don't support, or I'm against things that I don't even know what she's talking about. And again, never answered any question. I mean, abortion is probably the best one. Like, at what point is it inappropriate to abort, to end a pregnancy? She never answered. We asked her 3 times. So, I mean, look, you can keep looking at it. And this is a perfect time for me to address one thing. She repeatedly says and keeps saying that I'm not doing my job, that I'm not good at my job, that I'm not here, whatever. Either she's right, or the 800 members of the former members of Congress that gave me the only Republican Distinguished Service Award 2 years ago. They flew me up to Federal Hall in New York City, her hometown for 20 years. And they gave me an award. We had a town hall and we had a little party because me and my friend from Washington, Derek Kilmer, helped modernize Congress. So when 800 former members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, say, William Timmons, you're doing a damn good job. And then I got somebody that's never been in elected office, never served in the military, never really, it's really frustrating. It's frustrating that I have to deal with this nonsense, but that's where we are. And we got 13 days, and the voters are going to speak on November 5th. So as to your question, the bill you're talking about was never voted on. It was never voted on in the Senate. It was never voted on in the House. I don't think she understands that because she's got no experience with legislative procedure. The proposal that was made by Senator Langford and a number of other people allowed 1.6 million illegal immigrants into this country without vetting and without any process. That's unacceptable. And it's silly. Like, it's just silly. I am incredibly pro-immigration. We need people to grow the economy. We need people to come here, millions of people to come to the United States, to grow the economy, to drag our way out of this debt that we're in, $36 trillion. We need them to come. They just have to tell us who they are. They have to tell us what their skills are. We need a merit-based system that vets people and come through the front door. So no, I'm not going to vote for some ridiculous thing that says, well, we're going to take it from 15 million, which I guess is 3.5 million people illegally every year, to 1.6. Is that better? Yeah, it's 2 million better, but it's still 1.6 million worse than what's appropriate. So no, I'm not going to vote for 1.6 million illegal immigrants coming into this country legally. I will vote for 3, 4, 5, whatever the number is, million people coming into the country legally that they meet the vetting requirements and the merit-based immigration standards that we should have.
Do you think that taking an all-or-nothing approach when it comes to immigration or other issues is going to lead to more deadlocking, or you won't be able to make progress and take action?
So this is the thing. You need serious legislators to have serious conversations. And I mean, Senator Langford did the best he could, but I think the timing is wrong. I do think that, look, I'll be honest with you. All the polling for swing states is trending to Trump being elected. Harris has basically suspended her campaign for the last 2 days. She's completely altered her entire campaign strategy for the last 2 weeks. I mean, I feel good about what's going to happen in 13 days. That said, whoever the president is next, we have to fix immigration. But first and foremost, we have to secure the southern border. And this isn't complicated. And just to say, all right, we're not going to have 3.5 million people every year enter the country illegally. We're going to have 1.6. That's unacceptable. So will I vote for a merit-based immigration system that secures the southern border and that allows us to grow the economy? Absolutely. That's what works. That's what's logical. That's what's common sense. But that's not what this current administration has done. And that's not what they're going to do. And she has, Vice President Harris is saying all this stuff that's hilarious because it is diametrically opposed to everything she's ever said. But she's doing it because it's 2 weeks before the election. She's like, maybe you'll believe this. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just like Joe Biden right before the midterm election, giving millions of Americans student loan relief, which he knew was illegal, which he knew was going to be clawed back, which he knew wouldn't work. But he told them that they would get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in relief. It's honestly one of the most morally reprehensible things I've ever seen any elected official do, because he knew that it wouldn't work. He knew that the Supreme Court would overturn it. He knew that they would not get the benefits that he was promising them, but he did it to get their votes. And it's so bad. It is so wrong. And I'm sure they're going to keep trying to do stuff like that, but look, I mean, that really made me mad. I'll be honest. I mean, to tell an American citizen that you're going to give them a benefit that you know, without a doubt, you can't give them, but you can give them the hope of it, and then know that after the election, the courts are going to take it away because it's not legal for the President of the United States to write a $250 billion check. I mean, that's just wrong. And again, I mean, that's what this administration has done. They've taxed, they've spent, and they've damaged our society. And everybody's going to be showing up to the polls saying, am I better off today than I was 4 years ago? And I'm going to be hard-pressed to find one person that says they are.
For the last few minutes, we're going to move into a quick speed round. Try and keep these answers 30 seconds or less. Let's start with something. If you had to put your typical day in Congress into one word, what would it be?
Hectic. Do you mean go on? 30 seconds? So, I mean, you know, it's actually one of the biggest, 30 seconds. I need like a sign somewhere. So, one of the biggest things on the Modernization Committee is the congressional calendar and schedule. We are in DC, we're back and forth constantly. Generally speaking, it's like 60-ish days traveling to and 60-ish days in Washington. It's ridiculous. So we need to reduce our travel days, increase our full work days, and we need to deconflict the schedule. I've spent more time on this than anybody in the last 20 years in Congress. I can give you more, that was 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's 30 seconds.
Hey, but time is the most important thing in Congress, and I'm telling you right now, I have been working on it more than anybody.
If you're reelected, who would you like to mold your congressional service after?
I mean, you know, if I'm reelected, who would I like to mold my congressional service? I've been elected for 6 years. I mean, I think we're doing a damn good job. So, I mean, I'm going to continue doing exactly what I've been doing. I've got a great team around me, and our constituent services are top notch. I mean, you know, my cell phone number's everywhere, and I've earned the respect and the trust of my colleagues. I think we're moving in the right direction, and you know, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing.
What's your favorite place to go eat in Greenville?
Chiano's. That was easy.
Barbecue, mustard-based, vinegar-based, or tomato?
Mustard based.
Explain.
You know, I try to eat clean, and mustard is, I guess, healthier for you. I don't know.
What about public life motivates you?
So I made the decision 8 years ago to dedicate a decade of my life to public service. And I spent 2 years in the state senate, and I really enjoyed it, and I made a big difference even as a freshman senator. And we've saved dozens of lives, we've saved thousands of jobs, we've saved dozens of businesses in the last 6 years. And it's rewarding. I'm helping my constituents, I'm helping the people that I represent, and it's worth the sacrifice that I make. I mean, we haven't talked about the fact that I'm also one of the only 5 members of Congress that are still serving in the military. I'm in the South Carolina National Guard.
Last question, do you have any pets?
I do not, but I want to get 3 black Belgian.
Everything that happens in politics is local. It affects your neighbors, it affects your streets, your beliefs, your emotions, your pocketbook. Everything is politics.
I love covering South Carolina politics because there are so many characters, so many big personalities.
And they're just people, and their beliefs and their attitudes and what they do, and it's an arena.
We have some great people on our team that have just a really deep breadth of institutional knowledge about the state and about the politics that are at play.
We know the politicians, we have their cell phone numbers, we are here in the State House with them every day. If there's something that I want confirmed, I can just walk up to the representative or the senator or walk down to the governor's office and ask. The Palmetto Politics newsletter has all of our politics content in one place 3 times a week. So you'll never miss a story.
It's going to be your best source of what's breaking in politics in South Carolina. When you have an organized, dedicated 5-member political team, I mean, you try to give the most coverage, the most in-depth coverage, the most accurate coverage, the most up-to-date coverage of everything in the state, and that's what the Post and Courier is doing.